I can do that as we talk to Brenda. So today we have Brenda Swenson. Brenda is from California, fabulous artist, fabulous person. It was good to meet you in Long Beach, Brenda, to see you once again. So Brenda will be showing us her painting techniques. And thank you for joining us, Brenda. So first we're going to start with Brenda's PowerPoint. And I don't know if you're on mute. Yep, you're still on mute.
Go.
There we go. There we go.
There, that's better.
So Ethel, can we watch Brenda's PowerPoint?
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll do a share screen now. Do we see this?
You go.
Yep. So we want to ensure that everybody gets a chance to connect with Brenda even after the session today. If you have not followed Brenda or liked her page, she has a page, of course, in Facebook. It's Brenda Swenson Watercolors.
I have an event, I forgot. It's 12:30, so this is
May we request guests to just help us mute your microphones first. Thank you. And of course, Brenda has all her information ready, workshops, most importantly, up on her website. And then, of course, Instagram. And the next couple of slides will be Brenda's artworks. So we start with this is Brenda.
Yeah, this is, I live near a farmer's market and I really enjoy going up there and just seeing what's growing and happening. And the whole idea of this, I liked not only all the organic shapes, but the structure of the crates behind it. So just kind of integrating it. Fun thing was I put out a call on Facebook. I was looking for interesting titles and I polled people and we came up with, you know, not only the signage here, but the title of the painting is Some Like It Hot. So I liked everyone's feedback. And next. In fact, I believe, yeah, this painting was in the Watercolor West exhibition and took a nice award. It's negative painting, something I'm going to be working on today. I have kind of a split personality between doing sketches, plein air painting, and negative painting. This is what I call a sketch collage, and it's not literal collaging, but the combining of images that tell a bigger story. So kind of fun to take a day, the events of the day, and tell a story all on one page. And next, this was in Spain. And it's a plein air sketch that I just integrated words off to the side. Just beautiful, beautiful area. Really enjoyed my visit there. Next. I did a sketching trip for 3.5 weeks with a girlfriend. And what I found is that it was a little bit difficult to carry all my supplies. So what I started doing was each day when I headed out, I was just carrying a sketchbook and a pen. And I did about, I think it was 58 sketches during the 3.5 weeks that it was gone, writing down notes into the page. And then when I got home, creating this painting. And my sketches may be in pen and ink and with no color, but it's always a sketch, whether in color or pen, that becomes inspiration for paintings. Paintings just don't come out of nowhere. I have to work them out in my head first. And next. Okay, my fascination with pens. Yes, I love pens. They are my painting them is my excuse to buy more of them. You know, I love to draw with them. I love the shapes. I love the history. And so I tried to take this collection and tell a bit of a story. And so the tags started doing that, the written suggestions happening beneath. I had this in the California Art Club Gold Medal exhibition and it was gone that fast. So I showed it once and then it went away to a new home. So it was a fun painting to do. And a lot of what's happening is just all of the negative spaces around the pen. the simplification of the corners and how the eye really kind of goes in. It's kind of a radial design. Fun to play with designs when you're doing one subject over and over again. And next. This came out of the pandemic. Being stuck in a studio for way too long and starting to look at my supplies, whether it be the pens or tubes of paint, and just finding these patterns and interesting shapes. And this is the tub that I kept all my paints in. And so looking at it, just putting a little bit to the side so it was more of a dynamic line, and then just building in the shapes. Perhaps you could even see a similarity between the last painting in the pens and this, how I use the space between them to really kind of accent the lights. Because with watercolor, we know it is the whites of the paper that is really our gold. And next, Sunday Morning is the title of this painting. All those things we do on Sunday mornings, whether we're reading the newspaper, cleaning the pens, making our notes and lists for the day. But anybody who uses fountain pens knows you're going to have accidents once in a while. And so that became kind of the idea of this painting. And I literally figured out how to do ink drops on a piece of paper before I even did the painting, because if the ink drop didn't work, my painting wouldn't work. So I had fun with that. I think that's all of it. Okay. So every painting that we do has a story. Otherwise, there's no reason to do it. And so the little bit of the stories behind, whether it's my love of fountain pens, the pandemic, looking at paint tubes laying around, or travels, there's got to be a story, especially for me, or there really isn't a reason to paint it. That's the whole reason there is. And when I get to the point to where I've said everything I want to, and that the story is completed, that's when I know the painting is done. It's over.
Awesome. Hey, Brenda, on the pens painting, what was your background color there?
Which one?
On
There is a
pens?
on
the
which
one-
one?
Pens?
There was 2 pen paintings.
Oh,
The one that had all the tags around it.
yes, yes.
Okay, that was a mixture. It was before Lauren McCracken came out with his black there, but you notice it really pushes towards the blue more than it does the blacks. So it was done with about 4 glazes, and each time the glaze changed. But often I'm using a phthalo green with a quin rose. That's one of my favorite combinations. I use it all the time.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
Yeah,
very neat. So a very
gorgeous.
bright with a transparent, very opaque.
Very transparent.
Very cool.
And
Okay.
it takes multiple glazes. Yeah.
Brenda,
So-
could you repeat those 2 colors, please? Queen
Yeah.
rose and?
Phthalo green and quin rose.
Okay, thank you.
Try, and they're amazing because you put down the phthalo green blue shade, okay? And then you're putting down the quin rose. And it's just, as long as they're wet, boy, you can push into the red or push back. I mean, you can just keep pushing back and forth when it's wet, and it's gorgeous what's happening. But you can find that middle point and it's just perfect. And I even use that mixture for stormy skies. Because when it's in a wet passage, it separates out, and skies, when they're really stormy, have this underlying colors coming through them. You often see like a red or kind of a greenish tint, whether it's the bouncing up from the land. I love it. So I love to play with color. In fact, even I wonder if that's even in here, because I'm always playing with those colors. No, it's not going to be in this book. It'll be in my other book. Okay. I play with color all the time. It's my favorite.
So if you're on Zoom today, you'll be able to ask, I should ask you first, Brenda. Do you want to have questions as they come up, or would you like to wait toward the end?
Either way, I can handle so many questions during the demo, but if it gets to be I'm answering more than I'm paying attention to the paper, then what I'll do is say, let's save this, and I'll wrap up the demo a little bit sooner, so we'll have 10 minutes to really ask and hear the answers.
Okay,
Okay.
awesome. So if you're on Zoom, you'll be able to ask Brenda directly. And if you're on Facebook, I or Anna or Gabriel or someone will relay your message. So please, if you have messages or questions, please ask. And Brenda, with that, I'm gonna, would you want to go ahead and start? Because I want to give you as much time as possible.
Great, thanks, John.
Yeah.
What I want to talk about is the love of sketching before I go into the full-on painting. It is the sketchbooks. This one happens to be one that I make with an assortment of watercolor papers, pastel papers. This is literally tracing paper. I find that just drawing in different papers gives me a different experience. Smaller ones like this are on, get this out of the way. Frequently I'll use pastel paper, the Canson Metien's pastel paper, when I want to have a tone surface. So I enjoy just being kind of experimental, not always knowing what the end result will be. To me is something that doesn't inspire me. So I will change the papers. On this one, I'm using white for the absolute lights, but everything else is the paper. And then here you can see the adding whites also. The variety of sketchbooks, I find that when I head out to paint, sometimes we don't know what the subject matter is going to be. We're just heading out. So when I have a sketchbook that has different kinds of paper in it, I'm able to make a choice of what works best for that day. And yeah, here's a good example. Let me find it. This was just a sketch that I did that when you look over my shoulder here is the final painting that came out of it. So I work out things a little bit smaller because if they're not going to work small, they're not going to work big. So this is where I like to figure it out. And this is just painting around Pasadena. We have lots of beautiful architecture in our area. And oh yes, John, I think some of these, that is that combination we were just talking about with the phthalo green and the Quinn rose. So interesting darks. And I also, not only this size of sketchbook, one that I make, I've been enjoying working in the one by Etcher that has the 140 pound. I like a paper that can handle a lot of abuse, and some papers are 90 weight in sketchbooks, and I can't put enough paint down without the paper starting to fold. So this was just over the last couple months, Cinco de Mayo going on, sketching plein air. And this one's pencil. There's often in these books, I consider them illustrated journals. There's going to be a large percentage of writing worked into the page. This was fun because I just wanted to record the growing process of the amaryllis as they are blooming in the studio, and to be able to paint across 2 pages, but each page being slightly different. And being out on location and doing a building and then looking off to the side and doing something totally different. So 1 location, 2 different views. So the books are, I'm just enjoying them. Sometimes we get in the mindset that a painting has to be something that's going to be framed, it's going to be shown, and it's going to be sold to be of value. And I try to stay out of that mindset when I'm sketching. When I sketch, is for me. I have to keep the playful component in it. Otherwise, I don't continue to grow. It's playtime for me. And so I really enjoy this process here. I'll put these aside. And with what I'm going to be doing today in the demo is going to involve negative painting. And I have people say to me all the time, can't you come up with a better name for it? Because negative painting sounds unpositive, obviously. So I want to just give a straight definition of why I'm doing this. If you look at these leaves, positive, and this is just a very direct interpretation of the leaves. Over here is the painting, the space around it, the negative space. younger generation won't know this, but when we used to do photography, we would get these long little sleeves that had the negatives in. The lights would be the darks would be light. And so negatives, that's where that term comes from for me. So when I look at it here, for it to work as a negative painting, then we have to have an underpainting. And then the next pass around, the next couple passes, we start painting into the negative space, which allows opportunity for lost edges and interesting underpaintings. Okay,
Very cool.
let's put this aside. When I'm planning on a negative painting, I need to think of, well, what are the 3 colors I'm going to use? When I think of my subject matter today, they're Matilaha poppies. I grew up with these poppies around me. They're part of my childhood. They're like an old friend to me. And each year when they bloom, people kind of look to say, okay, is Brenda going to be painting them yet? And most people don't realize that the flowers are about this big. They're huge. And the plant can get to be 12 feet tall. They're just this massive display. And I love to paint them. So I do it again and again. So when I'm looking for the 3 colors, I end up doing little combinations. The small peppers that you saw that I just had in the PowerPoint, this was the underpainting, the 3 colors that I used there. I'm looking for colors that are predominantly transparent, though one can be a semi-opaque, but not 3 opaques. Can't do it that way. And then for today, was playing around and I came across with 3 colors that I want to use. One is the manganese blue hue, Hansa yellow medium, and permanent yellow deep. All 3 of the colors are single pigment colors. And those are my favorite for my initial underpainting. Okay. And with Daniel Smith, they show in all their swatches whether or not something is transparent or it's opaque or it's granulating or staining. All those things are just there and available. So when you're looking to see what kind of paint it is, I'm just going to share a little bit of my background. Long before I even knew that Daniel Smith paints existed, I started creating what I call a color Bible. And this is all different manufacturers. And what I've done is I've put down a black line and I've done the samples, the glazes on top of it. What I have found is that a color that is transparent, when you start glazing, usually it's the 2nd or 3rd pass that you're going to see more of an opaque quality. So I just started going through paint after paint as paints were given to me, as manufacturers started sending me stuff. These were the tests that I was doing. And the reason that I say this, that it's so important, is that I've ended up with Daniel Smith because they are the paints that work the best for what I do. And I've used a lot of different brands. I use this as a teaching tool, as a wonderful reference to understand what is in these tubes of paint that we have. It's something that I just continue to just keep building. I'm fascinated with colors. I'm fascinated where they come from. But I've learned that to not always follow what is called the common name and really look to the index codes when you want to know what's in a tube of paint. And when I teach, that's a lot of what I teach is not, I don't teach color theory, I teach paint characteristics, and it's quite a bit different. Okay, so the 3 colors that I chose for today, pull them back out again, is the Hansa yellow medium, Hansa yellow medium, manganese blue hue, and permanent yellow deep. And I lost my towel. Oh, there's my towel. So what I've done over here on my palette is that I've pulled these colors out ahead of time so they're nice and fresh. One thing you'll find is that when you're using yellow in the very beginning of a painting, what can happen is that if your pencil lines are really dark, that they'll become sealed and almost become darker. once yellow goes down on top of it first. So I just take, these kneadable erasers and, just if you have extra graphite in any area, I like to just roll it around. You got to be careful because you can literally take all the pencil marks off. So I want to keep enough. And so I've already done this on most of the painting. So just to lighten them up. To have your pigments and your paints laid out ahead of time and have them be the right consistency is important before you even wet the paper. Because once you wet the paper, you're going to lose the moment. Okay, so make sure that the pigments in this underpainting are going to be about the same saturation, that they're all the same fluidness. About whole milk would be a good way to say it. A little more water into this. So why do I choose these three colors? Well, the simple reason is when I look at my subject matter, I'm thinking, okay, what colors are predominantly here? Well, white is the paper, right? So I don't have to worry a whole lot about this. But into the background is going to be a lot of greens. And my lightest greens will be able to come out of these colors right here. The blue being mixed with both of these combinations, I can get some interesting, okay? This is just the underpainting. It's not for the whole painting. So one of the fastest ways to wet down paper and kind of break the surface tension is with a Greek sponge. So. And you can even see a little bit of smudging when the pencil comes up. Not anything to worry about, just shows me that the pencil lines are there. Looking for how much shine is there. Making sure it's same all the way across. Stop up any extra I don't need. I usually work pretty flat to towards the end. I'll work more to slant about this angle towards the end. So for what we're doing here today, I found it's just easier to work flat instead of trying to change the light so it wouldn't be in shadow. Looking for any big puddles, and we look good to go.
Brenda, do you ever wet the back of your paper?
I have. I do like that. Yeah, you can really buy yourself a lot more time.
And what paper are you painting on today?
This right here is the Fabriano Artistico. And I go between that and the Saunders Waterford.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Brenda, you said Fabriano. Which Fabriano was this?
Artistico.
Excuse me?
Artistico.
Thank you.
We're also getting a repeat question of, can you tell us about your palette, Brenda?
Yeah, this is a Craig Young palette that was custom made about 18 years ago in England.
Also, Deborah's had her hand up for a while. Deborah, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Where's Deborah? So I'm going to let the background color just kind of leach into the whites because I don't want the white of the flowers to be so totally white. I want it to be tainted by all the color around it. Is Deborah going to be shy?
Possibly. It looks like she put her hand down, so maybe the answer was already given.
Okay. Just want to get enough pigment down here that can really move around a bit. The paper will really get nice and taut towards the end. Since the paper is already wet, you really don't need to put a lot of water into your paints. It's already there for you. Okay, I'm gonna go to a wetter brush. Paper is starting to set up already.
Dee, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question, go ahead.
Hi, I was wondering if Brenda, if you would please tell us again, what are the 3 paint colors that you're using?
Permanent yellow deep, Hansa yellow medium, and manganese blue hue.
Brenda, do you use special brushes? Right now you're using a mop, aren't you?
Yeah, I have brushes. These are by Escoda. And this is a mop, and I have synthetic and natural hair brushes. When I need some really wet stuff, I'm going with a mop, which is what I'm using right now. You can tip the board. You can see what's going on here to move things around a little bit better.
Brenda, what type of board is that?
Oh, that's just the gator board. 3/16 inch. They're so great. They last forever. I do a lot of tipping and tilting when I'm painting just to get things to move in directions that I want. Okay.
Brenda, do you spritz? Do you use a spritz bottle? Or do you
Sometimes,
just-
yeah. Probably in the next stage I will, to lose an edge, but not right now. And I'm gonna drop just a little permanent yellow deep into a couple more places. I like when things really move out. I don't want any hard edges at this stage of the game. I intentionally lose them. Oh. If you have any puddles, now's the time to get rid of them. I don't recommend that people come in and do this with a paper towel. It will leave hard edges where you don't want it. If you've got extra paint, just tip your board off to the side and you can use your brush as a way to wick the extra moisture off. But you don't want to interfere with this underpainting by blotting back into it. Okay.
So which tape are you using so that
This
it
is
doesn't go under it?
Fabriano 140-pound Artistica.
I meant the tape that's holding it down.
Oh, white artist tape.
Oh. Doesn't always stick well for me. Might be old.
Just
Oh, thank you.
Cindy, did you get your question answered?
Yes, thank you. The tape was the question. Thank you so much.
yeah, I don't like to use tapes that have color on them. Want them to be white so they're not interfering with what I'm seeing. And it's best not to leave tape on longer than you need to. Okay, so that's dry. I mean, this stage is done now, it needs to dry. And I'm not gonna sit here with a hair dryer. Okay, so for the benefit of, here's the wet one, here's the dry one. How about that? Unless you wanna watch paint dry. Anybody? No? I'm not fond of watching paint dry myself. Okay, so we've got the underpainting done. Now is really the time when we need to find our shapes. And so this manganese blue hue is going to be pulled off of here. And I'm going to pull out a little French ultramarine blue. And I'm going to let this yellow here, which I call one of my mother colors, touch into the new color as I paint it around. And I turn the board as I paint. I don't paint vertical because I really need to turn this. Get out a nice puddle. When I
Brenda, there is a question by Carol. She asked if there is another blue you can use instead of manganese if you haven't got it.
Cerulean blue, give that one a try.
Cerulean.
Yeah, cerulean.
Yeah.
And even the cerulean blue chromium can give you a really nice variety. You just, the biggest thing that you have to watch is you don't want to get one that's a true opaque. That's where your problem's going to be, okay? So if it's a transparent or a semi-transparent, you can do it in the first place. I mean, excuse me, in the underpaint. So I'm pulling out enough pigment that I have a nice variety here. Nice big puddle. The rule of thumb is always pull out more than you need, but usually I end up running out anyhow. So what can I say? You try. And okay. And I'm going to pull out a little bit of cobalt blue just off to the side here. Question?
Cindy, go ahead.
When you painted the first layer and then you let it dry, how long roughly do you let it dry? Just to the back of the hand where it's not cool?
Bone dry. It's got to be bone dry.
Which, I'm thinking a couple hours.
Yeah, once the shine is gone, once the shine is off the paper, then you can use a hairdryer. But as long as there's any shine whatsoever, don't.
Okay, thank you.
You won't be able to hold an inch. Okay.
What do you find the hairdryer does if you're using that earlier? I don't tend to use hairdryers, but I'm curious.
I find people over dry. They get that hairdryer too close, and remember, watercolor paper is cotton, right? What happens when you overheat a cotton shirt with an iron?
Shrinks.
You damage the top fibers. And so people get that hairdryer just down there and almost burn the paper. And I find, I can get a cup of coffee and come back and I'll be ready, I just try to. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, thank you. It's great to hear your tips. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I've got two blues out. I'm going to pull out a little bit of quinacridone gold, one of my favorite colors.
And no, I believe it's Nona. Go ahead and unmute your mic and ask your question.
Is Nona there?
Nona?
At this point, you're going to want to have a couple brushes in your hands. A bigger and a smaller one.
Yes, Angela, here.
Nona.
Yes, I'm here.
Good to hear you. Would you like to ask your question now?
I'm loving it. I'm just appreciating, loving.
Oh, thank you.
I love these flowers. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. So happy. Love Brenda's work.
You're very sweet.
Yeah, and I see it's such a clean work, and she cleans all the time. It's fantastic how she works. Wow.
So glazing back on top here, I'm going to do some mixing on the surface here, but I'm saving some of my shapes underneath, mainly the flowers, though a highlight or two of a couple of the leaves. Negative painting, I will use to a different degree on almost everything that I do. But when I do the florals it really is where it shines. It has the opportunity to really show why it is such a great technique for this way of working. Turn the board. Makes some people dizzy, but it's the way that I work. I'm just seeing shapes, and that's the most important thing for me right now, is to be aware of the shapes between things. I'm going to find the largest shape, which is the Matilaha. And then when I come back in the next glaze, that's when I'm going to really start focusing on the botanical leaves and such all in the background. But there's a quote that I love, and it says, "Don't paint the fleas before the dog." Okay. So you got to get the big stuff taken care of first before you can start working into the smaller. I find when people don't know what they're doing and they're getting nervous, that's when they often just start painting the little details because they feel comfortable there. Try to get the biggest shapes done first and then work towards the smaller.
Brenda, the consistency of this wash, would it be milk again?
No, it's a little bit thinner. A little bit thinner.
Like tea or coffee? Or whatever.
Yeah, well, I guess there's different kinds of milk. So let's say this is non-fat milk. And last time was more like whole milk. So I want to have a gentle transition from the bottom to the top. See this? There's not this abrupt, this is green and this is blue. It's got to be a gentle transition. Using a nice big wet brush, you can float the color on top. Some of my paintings, in some areas, I might have up to 7 passes of color. And what will happen is if you use a really stiff brush, you start lifting up what's happening underneath. And you really just want to float on top of the surface.
Brenda, we have a question. What size mop brush are you using?
This is a 12.
Great. And then Nutan, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Thank you. So Brenda, you talked about carving out shapes. So I see that in the background, you don't have anything drawn. And I'm sure it takes a lot of practice to carve out the shapes, but what were you thinking when you're doing a negative painting in the background where you have not drawn anything? How do you carve out the shapes?
Yeah, in fact, the next stage, I think, will really start to show that. Whenever I start to build a shape, it's always got to tuck underneath something before. You just can't start putting shapes that are floating on the surface. And so everything will begin to go underneath and come out. So that's what I'm thinking about is shapes that will suggest the types of leaves, but not showing always the whole leaf, only just little bits and pieces. Does that answer it?
My confusion is, because there's nothing drawn there. So, I would usually go and draw a little bit of suggestions of the leaf in the background so I can paint around them. But I'm sure you have lots of practice doing it.
Well, see, but you don't need to paint around them yet, so I don't draw them yet. Okay. So you'll see the stage that they will be drawn. There's nothing wrong with drawing.
Yeah, because you left it little white spot there. It's not white exactly, but below these flowers. So I thought you're gonna do some kind of carving out other places.
On one of the okay. So you're thinking ahead. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and that's right. So whenever you're coming into an area like just below here, your values need to match. And that's part of the reason that I don't like to pull out too many colors in this passage. The most important thing is that I'm needing to carve out and really find my big shapes. That's the most important thing. Also, the overlapping. this shape overlaps here and comes up into here. I want things to be touching each other. What you're talking about, the little highlight here, will make a difference later on. Just a little, it's like, helps me remember that the drawings underneath it, there's going to be a highlight. There's some holes in just a few, between a few of these petals. I'm just going to put a few of these little spots here to, because I've got the same color laying out right now.
Quick question, just a little bit more. So when you're doing this, are you always looking at your reference to like spot these holes? And
No, I haven't looked at it yet. I had it drawn. So when I drew it, I did look at that. But during the painting process, I've already kind of worked it out in my head to a degree. I will look at them again when I come towards the end and I'm looking at the shadow shapes. But right now I don't need to. Okay, so.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for answering questions.
So what I've done is I had to find a place to start, and then I basically work clockwise when I'm going around the painting. Have a good place to start. I want to look at a gentle transition from top to bottom. I don't want it to feel like the leaves end here and like there's suddenly this abrupt sky. Everything relates to everything else around it. Okay, so even though I don't like to do this one, I'm going to hit with a hairdryer for just a minute so we can move on to the next stage. Okay, Mike, you have a way of silencing this beast on your end?
Automatically. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Brenda, Susan here. If there's a time, could you please share what colors you have on your little palette?
The colors that are on my palette right now? Here, let me put this out. Let me do something here. So you can look at this while I'm letting this dry, okay?
Thank you.
You see this? You can even do a screenshot of that so you can see the colors. Oh, shoot, you know what? That's my other palette. Nope, wrong palette. In fact, here's my dot card with Daniel Smith. You see that? Will that work for you?
Great, thank you. I'll do a screenshot. Awesome.
Okay, and I'll finish drawing.
We'll also share a link to Brenda's dot card from our website in the chat.
Brenda?
Yes.
Hi, this is Diane. I just enrolled in your May illustrated journal class, and the listed colors are slightly different than what you had posted in the art toolkit. So do I need to bring just what is listed in the May class or add some from, there's a little bit of change.
Yeah, there is a change because I will use more opaques when I sketch than in a negative painting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
And you can also ask, if you go on my website,
yes.
Any of these colors that you're asking me about, if you go on my website, I list my colors, what I have for negative painting and what I have for sketching and what I have for plein air painting, if there's any changes. They're all up there. So you can kind of see the difference between the two of them.
Thank you.
Sorry about this. This is why I don't like hair dryers. It takes a long here.
Brenda, you're also teaching a workshop in North Carolina. I might bump into you out there.
Say that again?
You're teaching a workshop in North Carolina this year?
Yeah, I'm going to Cheap Joe's art stuff. I love Cheap Joe. I love everything they got there. Beautiful, beautiful facility. State of the art. It's the best. And Joe Miller of Cheap Joe's is just one of the best people on earth. Just good people. Yeah. Kind of like Daniel Smith here. It's the good people that you want to work with. You can leave the other ones behind. Okay. And so we had some questions about the leaves. When will you draw them in? So you can see a little suggestion. They're right here. And what I will do is that some of those I will have drawn. And even though, let's see if I move it up a little bit, can you see them underneath a little bit in the drawing? They are there ever so slightly. The yellow will seal graphite in ways that you don't always want. So you got to be careful of that, especially to not have too many of them drawn here in the beginning. So I'm going to pull out some more color and I'm going to move into something darker. And this is the phthalo turquoise blue, or is it blue turquoise, John? What is it called? Phthalo turquoise blue or blue turquoise?
Phthalo turquoise blue.
There you go. So I'm going to pull some of this out. And I'm going to be mixing into it some quinacridone burnt orange. I like the variations in greens that I can get with this mixture. And then I'm going to also pull in a little quinacridone gold into it. So when you look into here, you can start to see some, in fact, I pull it up a little bit closer. You can see all these variations in greens start to happen inside there. I like to have a big puddle so that there's a variation of green from one side to the next. When I pull from the center, it's one color, off to the sides, it will vary.
Is that a metal palette or is it plastic?
It's a metal palette.
That's what I thought. Thank you. It looks like it.
Yeah. And I've had it for about 18 years and there hasn't been, any problem with rust or, rust breaking off in your palette isn't a pretty thing. Okay. And I'm going to also pull out some French ultramarine blue over here. I want to have a lot of variations in greens because you can see there's a lot of territory that has to be covered with greens. So I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to put some quinacridone gold into this mixture off to the side here. Green is a color that I find get a lot of people into trouble. Either it can be too strong and caustic looking, or it can be too much the same from top to bottom. So I like to have a lot of variation. I'm just going to start to suggest a few of the stems and leaves in these areas. You don't want to get too dark too quick. You want to be able to, with each passage, pull out another layer in density of foliage. And there's always this overlapping and tucking into something else. So here's a suggestion of another stem.
I think Sandra McDuffie has a question. Sandra, go ahead.
Yeah. This green space is dry.
Behind here, yes.
Mhm.
So this is just a suggested kind of shape that I'm creating in here. Not getting too detailed in them yet.
But the painting is all dry.
All dry, bone dry.
Okay. Yeah, this is the thing I cannot do. I'm just seeing
You don't have the patience?
magic you do. Yeah, because it's well, it doesn't come okay for me yet.
Practice, yeah. Yeah, give
Yes.
yourself permission to
Yeah.
practice. So I'm wanting to transition from the green once again back up into more. of a
Yeah,
blue.
this is lovely. This is fantastic. This is lovely indeed.
Nona, if you've got another question, go ahead and ask.
Yeah, I'm just loving it. My God. I've seen Brenda in books, in magazines, but as I'm saying now, it's, well, very happy.
You're very
Thank you.
sweet.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
If you
This
get any
moment,
puddles, just go ahead and tip it, let the paint just move to keep softer transitions.
yeah, but you're putting a lot of water now.
There's a lot of water and it's trying to get too dark too quick. And that's
Yeah,
why
I know.
I really have to break this down into steps for you. Just because there's no way that I could do this in 45 minutes without having this broken down into very distinct steps.
Brenda, what size brush are you using right now?
This is a 10. And it's a 10 mop. By Escoda.
This is, I guess, an aquario, a squirrel, right?
Aquario, squirrel.
Yes, squirrel.
Okay, need to get my value to be very similar from here to there. And so going back into the darker greens, because I want the transition from two sides and it can move up the page a little bit. Painting around the suggestion. As you can see, I didn't do a whole lot of leaves, did I? Each time I go around, I'll probably pull out maybe 3 to 7 leaves, depending upon what subject matter I'm working on, whether it's the poppies or a different kind of plant. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to make a little bit bigger jump in progressions, but I want to show you the full process of the painting. And just pick a little bit of the puddles up. Okay, so we had the underpainting. This is just the first pass, okay? The first. So as we're moving along, okay, let's get ourselves a little bit further. So here we are here where we've just really, this is the second layer overall. Here you can see I've started to suggest more of the leaves beneath here. I've been doing a little bit of the work up in here that I can start to focus on. Put this aside. I can start to look, well, you can't see it there either, can you? Okay. There you go. I've started to work on the shadows down in here. I put a little bit of value there. I can start to look up into the very top and a little bit of what's happening and the shadows. I always draw out the shadow shapes so they're very clear in my mind. So I'm going to pull out a little bit of the cobalt blue. And get some fresh water. And a little bit more of the permanent yellow deep. See if you can you see the top one? There you go. Then I'm looking at the shapes in the shadows. There's a little bit of highlights just on the top, and I drew this stem on top of it, so I'm not going to put the shadow onto there. Catching enough top shape before the blue has a chance to completely dry. The cobalt blue is when I like to put a little bit of the penstemon color in, so it will bleed up into the blue and not look completely isolated, so you lose some of those edges. And looking at where the highlights are, wanting to keep those, and just starting to define the form with the shadows. A little more blue.
Newton, if you want to unmute your mic and ask your question, go ahead.
This layer is looking so lovely, and I noticed that you have some soft edges in there. Could you please talk about how do you choose which edges to lose and which hard edges to keep?
Well, when I look at shadows, the cast shadows have hard edges and the form shadows have soft. So that's something that I'm paying a lot of attention to as far as the shadows go. Now, when I think of my subject matter, my most important one right here, it's I do want to lose some edges in it. I want it to feel like there's a strong light source. So you can see that I've softened it right here. That was done with a stiff brush. There was, can you see the negative painting down in here? That was done.
Yes.
Towards the end, and unfortunately, you do what you do in 45 minutes and you don't make excuses. There's only so much you can do in a painting. But what I want to do is show that even though this portion has been negative, the flowers have been negative, some of the centers are positive, but then also I will start to work into the background and just very, very lightly begin to suggest some positive shapes. So I would say about 90% of this, or maybe 85% is negative painting, but the rest is going to be some positive strokes that I just feel just add to the overall look. I want them to be ghosted. I don't want them to be nearly as strong as what's happening down here, so they can go into the background. And then there's going to be this nice darker shaped leaf here against this. That will just kind of help pop the edge of the petal a little bit more. So I haven't used, as you can see, every color on my palette. That's not what you want to do. You want to be more selective, use fewer colors, but that they play well together. They're good mixing colors. And the Daniel Smith paints are amazing. They mix beautifully. I always know the consistency is going to be the same. The color mixtures are going to be the same. They just react beautifully time and time again. So It makes a lot of difference how my paintings turn out in the end when I'm using a really good pigment. I'm gonna touch, greens always have a little touch of red. And so I like to just touch a little bit of it into the buds that are coming up. But you'll also notice down in here in the darker passages, and see if this will pick it up at all. You can probably see there's a red underglow, especially in this area here. I frequently drop reds down into that. So I'm about 3/4 done, not completely done, but it's starting to come to life. There's one more stage I'll just show you since we're getting close to the end, but where you go from here, and then this is just finishing up the background a little bit more. It really is a process of trusting the stages, not trying to do too much too quick, and using pigments that are transparent. You want to avoid anything that's opaque. There can be accents with opaques at the end, but make sure that your pigment is truly transparent. That is the reason why I do the samples in the book. I need to know how transparent they will stay, glaze after glaze after glaze, because if they start to go milky, what will happen is all my underlying color will be for nothing. Okay, so I can't begin to tell you enough how much I love Daniel Smith Paints. They allow me to do what I want to do, and I'm just really grateful to be a brand ambassador. They're just the best company out there.
It's great to have you, Brenda. That's fabulous. I love your painting. And so will you post the final result for us?
Sure. And what I can even do is I will post it online. I can even just show some of the process of the building up process to get where we get to the end.
That'd be
Okay.
fantastic.
And you know, on social media, ask me your questions. I'm pretty good about replying. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you for being with us today. Everybody, thank you for joining today. That was great to see.
Thank
Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.